Ryan Reynolds, Under the Tudorscope, Part 9, School and Cadre. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Following a detailed examination of the evidence in a comprehensive examination of the behaviour of Ryan Reynolds, the conclusion was that he is a narcissist. And if you'd like to demonstrate your appreciation for the excellent work of the Ultra, feel free to provide super thanks using the buttons below. We now turn, with that news, to address the question of what type of narcissist he is. One of the massive advantages of the work that I have created over the years with regard to my classification of narcissists is that I provide you with the cataloguing of them in a way which gives you an unrivaled level of information. There are those that talk about covert and grandiose and vulnerable narcissists, which serves a purpose up to a point, but are generally rather too wide and vague terms to apply to a categorization of narcissist, and I've done videos explaining why that is. Certainly, I see that it is appropriate to talk about covert behaviors, grandiose behaviors, vulnerable behaviors, but to categorize a narcissist in those terms is unhelpful, as it's ultimately too wide. Instead, I created a categorization of schools, of which there are numerous, both major schools in terms of lesser, mid-range, greater and ultra, and then sub-schools in respect of lesser, mid-range and greater, to provide a higher level of specification and particularization. Across these sub-schools there are shared behaviours, but there are also considerable differences, which makes it easier, having found out through a narc detector what type of narcissist you are dealing with. You can then fine-tune this, for instance, through the HG Mall series, available in the Knowledge Vault, link in the video description, and my many gratis videos, by homing in on the ones which are specific to the type of narcissist that you found yourself dealing with. That then enables you to understand much more about why they behave the way that they do, what they do in relation to you, and anticipating what might come next. Invaluable information. With regard to the question of Cadre, there are 4: victim, somatic, cerebral, and elite. Now, all narcissists have a victim mentality to an extent, because it's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault, but things always seem to happen to them, and it's not fair. Certain narcissists make a great big deal about this. And whilst Reynolds certainly does have a victim mentality, he doesn't cross the evidential threshold to be found to belong to the victim cadre, and we can therefore exclude that. Objectively, you would say that Reynolds is good-looking. He's body-conscious. He always stays trim, and for certain roles he's certainly worked out. He presents himself as clean and well-groomed. He's often well-dressed. He was the face of Armani Code for a period of time. He's a very wealthy man, clearly having a preoccupation with money. He evidently works out, attends the gym, looks after himself and eats well. He utilises social media extensively. It's evident, given the number of intimate relationships that he's had, that sex is important to him. His appearance matters also, and accordingly, he demonstrates a lot of somatic traits. Alongside that, he's clearly somebody that has an interest in world events, and, with his philanthropy, charity also. He can sing, and has dalliances with music. It's also the case that he has demonstrated interest in film, naturally, as a consequence of that being his career. He does exhibit some cerebral traits alongside the somatic, which would give a finding that he would be elite, and that is his cadre leaning slightly more towards somatic. Ryan Reynolds' cadre is elite. And if you'd like to understand more about what that means, you can go to the Knowledge Vault and obtain HG Mall's The Elite Narcissist. What about his school? Well, he did exhibit physical violence to a child, which would be a lesser behaviour, but it was a one-off and it was done within the context of purportedly acting. There have been instances of heated fury, although he's not known for it. There aren't regular demonstrations of it, for instance, in the way that Alec Baldwin does. There has been destruction of property as a child, although there doesn't appear to have been much reference to that as an adult. Overall, there is the lightest of dustings of lesser behaviours, but it's certainly not a category that you would place him within. He operates with a facade. This is the projection of an image to the public of being a caring and pleasant individual, but alongside a concept of superiority. This is demonstrated by virtue of this snarky, cheeky, chappy persona, which essentially is saying, I'm better than you because I'm quick-witted and amusing and I can put you down, but also you can like me in respect of that. In a strange kind of way, there's a bit of a paradox in that he insults people but does it in a way to say, but it's good fun and humour so you can like me. But it is linked to a facade of superiority. He owns and invests in several businesses and is an individual that you would call highly successful. Not only does he exhibit considerable wealth, but he has done rather well in his acting career and business careers. He's done well at getting publicity, for instance, in relation to Wrexham AFC. He has a huge fuel matrix. He's known around the world and has millions of fans, although latter behaviours might have started to reduce that. He has an impressive property, at least those that have been mentioned, and he presents as relatively polished. All of those are greater behaviours, and he scores highly in that regard. His manipulative palette tends to accord more with the mid-range narcissist. We see silent treatment that has been utilised, and a different type of facade management. His level of charm is towards the upper end of mid-range. Whether you like him or not, objectively you would have to admit that he does exhibit charm. With regard to his cognitive function, he's quite clearly a fairly clever man, demonstrated with regard to the way that he's navigated his career, but also, in particular, in respect of his business dealings, and therefore he exhibits a high cognitive function. Prior to the problems surrounding It Ends With Us, he was well regarded by many people. He exhibits only a moderate threshold on his ignited fury, however, both in terms of heated and cold. He has shown insecurity. This was exhibited in relation to the comments of T.J. Miller, and also some of the behaviours that have been shown vis-à-vis intimate partners, and also in relation to the anxiety that he's spoken about. He also has utilised pity plays. The exhibition of anxiety, insecurity and pity plays are factors which move him away from the finding of him being a greater narcissist. But prior to that, he was a consideration for that categorisation. Furthermore, another aspect which takes him away substantially from the greater categorisation is in relation to awareness. He genuinely believes that he and his wife have been hard done to, and that is what justifies the behaviour towards Baldoni. He also, as has been seen, thinks that his behaviour of putting people down is okay, and he's just joking. It isn't the case that he knows that he's being nasty and revels in it, but rather he really does think that it's okay to behave that way, demonstrating a lack of awareness. Accordingly, whilst he does score relatively highly with regard to greater traits, there are factors which mean he can't belong to that categorisation. Given that we've already excluded lesser, means that he falls within mid-range. Given the absence of the whole of lesser behaviours, lower mid-range is not a consideration. Whilst he does use pity plays, he's not somebody that regularly turns on the waterworks and would be seen regularly playing the victim card, so middle range type B is excluded. He does like to try and come across as a nice guy, but with a bit of edge by this cheeky chappy, snarky persona, and it doesn't quite accord, despite the philanthropy with middle range type A. Instead, as a consequence of his polish, his superior attitude, his arrogance, the snark, the success, the charisma, but without being able to get into the greater category, the most appropriate outcome for Ryan Reynolds is upper mid-range. Ryan Reynolds is a narcissist, and he is an upper mid-range elite. Did you get it right? And with the right reasons? Be honest now. Share your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.